folks, we're back. Still debugging the problem, excuse me, with request history. Going to require a little focus, so I don't think I'll be chatting too much the next few minutes. Delete all my logs, run another test. And I'm going to delete my request history rows too. And everything passed. Here's the 2 rows we created. And we still have that block grant issue. Here's my arbitrate message. Update block. Arbitrate. Update block. User callback. That all seems correct. And then we don't know where this is coming from. Well, I updated some messages in the other modules, but I don't think I deployed them. So I think it's time for it to build and deploy everything so we know where we stand. So this is rebuilding all the dependency libraries for all the modules that are deployed to Lambda and deploying them as well. It's generally good to do this sort of thing regularly. Occasionally you forget to deploy something and then your application malfunctions and you can't figure out why. Now, one question I've been asked is, how do I get my DOS windows looking like this? The typical DOS window is much smaller. It has a black background, white writing, and a font that, I don't know, isn't very particularly pleasing to my eye. So it's actually quite straightforward to change this so that every time you pop up a new window, it comes up in the size that you like, with the colors you like, and the fonts you like. So if you want to do that, right-click on your DOS prompt, assuming you pinned it to your taskbar. Right-click again to get to its properties. And over here, in Options, I go to a medium cursor size. Font, I go to 14 point what's it called? Lucida. Layout, oh yeah, here's the window size and height. So I go 120 characters wide by 45 tall. I'm not sure what screen buffer size is. That might be the amount of history memory it keeps. Colors I also changed. I changed the screen text so that there's no red and the other two colors are 255. Screen background was already black, so I just left that alone and I didn't change anything else. And that's about it. Make those changes and you'll have windows that look like mine. And what I'll do on some desktops, or if I have certain accounts that point to production, I will change the background color to something else so that I realize at all times which windows are pointing to production instances and which windows are pointing to non-production instances. So our build should be finished. I'm going to wipe our data and do another test run. So my suspicion now is not that the delete lock code is old or somehow writing the wrong text to the database. I think another process is writing that. I'm just not sure where. So that's why I was looking for updated messages. The first thing I'm going to check is in the CloudWatch logs. Let's make sure that our new delete log, there's still no log for delete lock. Alright, we found the problem in arbitrate last time. Let's see how we're doing this time. That looks normal. There's my normal exit message. And it ran again. And that's all normal. Okay, no issues with arbitrate. Interesting. So why do I have two streams here? The way CloudWatch or Lambda or whoever breaks things up into streams is still a bit of a mystery to me. Normal exit. Oh, here we are. Here's a problem. It's the same type of problem. So this is update log. I wrote a little utility to help the logs. log for update log. Update. So that utility is a JavaScript utility that uses the AWS SDK to pull down the logs and dump them out to the console. So what I like to do is pipe that through a string search for error, case insensitive for error, actually just error. Yeah. So a bunch of errors. Cannot read property. Add step. So update log, line 51. So microservice. Line 51. So here was a case. So again, this request was not necessarily generated by an outside request. Sure it was. That it was generated by unlock. Search for RH. Unable to find RH. So the problem is my public-facing unlock function. Somehow I haven't updated this to add the business of a request history. Well, that's entirely wrong. Should be doing the same thing as lock is doing. So we'll just clone a bit of code. And here's the block. Now where to put it? Yeah, same fix as we did before. Just move this inside of there. And it's calling step 2, so we don't need that. Yep. Change this. 3953. So this is unlock. I also want to put a number here. we do not. Well, this is going to be tricky. Validate session, validate input parameters. So we have a lock hash and a lock request ID. Yeah, we're not creating a new one. We need to retrieve the existing one. We would have to retrieve it by lock request ID. And I do not have a key or an index on my request history table for that. Sorry, let me pull it over. I have two handy indexes for retrieving history by time, by customer by time, and by customer namespace. But I have no way yes, I do. The primary key is that same lock ID. I think I made that connection in the lock program a few days ago. Where is lock request ID? Request ID, yes. So it is the identifier of the request history. So I could do a primary key lookup, or partition key lookup as they call it, get the old request history back, and then use it. I think that would work. So I need to add a get to my request history API. So I've got my queries. Put, pair of puts, and then I need retrieve based on partition key, which for this table is a unique identifier. ID. I haven't been putting my windows away. Yes, it is called request ID. And callback, I guess. Constant read, yes. Key ID is equal to this bad boy. I have to spell it correctly. That should do it. Request history get. Get rid of some of these. So, rather than creating a new object, I need to get it from the database. So, how would that work? DB request ID, or is it just request ID? Lock request ID. Okay, it's lock request ID. Yeah. So here, just a quick word about keyboard macros. Excuse me. You can speed up your programming quite a bit if common constructs like this you've loaded into a macro key. You might have noticed I'll often update the headers on a module with this Control-Shift-H, and that's because I bound Control-Shift-H to this block of text. There's a free tool on the internet called Auto Hotkey that I've used for this. It's you got to read through the documentation just a little bit to really get your head around it, but it's very powerful. It can do a lot of stuff, and the documentation is well organized. It just takes a bit of reading. So I'd recommend to anybody who's doing any amount of programming to grab yourself a macro key tool like Auto Hotkey, and actually that's an unpaid endorsement, I guess, because it certainly speeds things up for me. I also have one of these loaded, and this one, and this one. Oh, and there's another one. If you use API Gateway at all, you'll want this one. No, that's not it. Oh, it's loaded into my other desktop. Okay, never mind. Scratch that. It was the string of text application/JSON. Whenever you set up a new mapping in API Gateway, you end up having to type in that stupid string all the time. So I just loaded it into a hotkey to make things a little easier. Okay, so if we got an error, we're in trouble, or are we? Should not be possible for us to fail to retrieve this row unless something is broken. So I'm going to write this such that if this fails, we crash. It makes the logic simpler, and I don't think that rule would ever be broken. If we do end up finding a reason to have to break it, we'll have to revisit this code and make it tolerant to this record being missing. So, with error 6823. And that will crash the program. Otherwise, we're happy. Data.items. Oh, it'll be right here. There'll be an example here. Log master get. Step 2. Right, it may return an empty set. That's the other error condition here. There's an error with retrieval. Let's set the ERR object. But if the data simply doesn't exist, then that is also an error for us. So this would be, what should I say here? Should have done this. Take the rest of it. Should have taken the whole thing. Missing log request ID. And that should be enough, because this string will lead me back to this line of code. So it's have to make this a global variable. So I'll put it in caps instead. Most folks don't use a lot of all capitalized variable names in JavaScript, but I like to use them for clarity sometimes, to know what is global scope and outer scope versus inner scope, I guess. This is a bad way of checking for an empty data set, stringifying it and comparing it to this. But I dug around on the web, and all the other ways just didn't suit me. Okay, so at this point, we have a request history row. I'm not sure why that's red. Oh yes, I am. But I'm not. Do a little brace checking here. That seems fine. should be happening? I think so. Well, like I said, sometimes Sublime gets a little confused on brackets, so I'm sure when I run the code I'll find out. Rather than calling out, I have my RH. So that's one nice thing about using DynamoDB is that I can read and write JavaScript objects natively as long as I create my DB variable as a document client. The only thing that doesn't say, and it can be a complex object with you know, multiple members and sub-members and whatnot. But of course, any members that are functions won't be persisted, and lists of objects or arrays of objects do not persist correctly either. There's something wonky with DynamoDB there. I ended up having to stringify any members that were arrays of objects and destring it or parse them on the way back out of the database. Otherwise, they just don't persist correctly. So this is the happy path here. We're not jumping to step 3, I'm sure. We'll do something else, which is probably this. Here's where I can do that. Okay, so now I have saved the request into my stage variables, so it will get passed along. Oh, ooh, little premature. I don't want to write it to stage variables until I've done this add step. So you're going in there, and you go into the happy path, which is there. We're getting pretty indented here, which is making me uncomfortable. master get, which takes us to step 2. Alright, I think that's it. Wrong RH. Okay, that's right. So now we need to test unlock in its test harness. Where are we? Oh, we just did a build a minute ago, I'm sure. No, we haven't changed anything else. So let's test it. Again, Sublime was right. There's a problem there. Well, that would appear to be a problem. Okay. Cannot find module. Oh, right. I need to update the build file. Unlock build. We do need to do a build. Pick up that new library. Run the test. Huh. So if we got to here, oh, that's my new message. So he's going to need a real lock request ID. I can get that from Mr. DynamoDB. Really? Oh, what? This doesn't look right. Every once in a while, this web interface loses its mind. That looks better. So I'll just grab one of these. Stick it into the test harness. Lock request ID. That can't be right. I grabbed the wrong number. There it is. Unlock request IDs are now UUIDs. Try testing with one that exists. Kaboom. Where do we crash out? So the object I passed into request history was not the one expected. From line 70 of unlock. Right here. This guy is not who we thought it was, which is why we left that there. So we can see what that looks like. Item, yeah, it contains an object. That's the walk record. No, not necessarily. It has no steps. That's the problem. All right. I forgot to de-JSONify to parse the steps item. So we'll have to intercept that right when it comes back from the database and decode it, so that the higher level routines don't have to deal with it. Okay, so oh boy, I'm gonna have to put an error block in here. Otherwise, we can manipulate this. So, data.item.steps is what we're dealing with here. I want to say that is equal to JSON.parse yourself. So that'll just replace himself in place with the parsed object, which will be an array of objects. Yeah, this is the array of objects I was speaking about earlier. Does not persist well in DynamoDB, so you have to JSON stringify before you write it, and then parse it when you get it back. So that should help. Run the test harness again. Error is not defined. Oh, jeepers creepers. The language I'm programming in here. That's not callback, it is function. Data. And this is where that goes. Wow. Off by a mile. Yeah, and don't forget to do the callback. Data and null. That's wrong. Null and data. Always leave a comment for something like that. And that should do the trick. So we did our build. Better do another one. And look at that. Excellent. Here's my steps, came back as an array of objects. Very nice. Which means on request history I should see an unlock. When we have a look. All that worked correctly. There's an unlock. I don't think we'll see, no, not on that one, but this one, yep. Good, good, good. Now I think he sends a message to arbitrate. Yes, he sends an arbitrate message. So I'm going to look in the arbitrate log and just make sure that message did contain the request history. Because if it didn't, arbitrate, oh, we'll work around it, won't it? I should still see an arbitrate on the DynamoDB record for it. There's an unlock. I don't see an arbitrate. So what did arbitrate do with that and why? In the arbitrate, oh, that's interesting. Much better. What does arbitrate do if it can't find request history? It just works around it. So I'm going to add a message so that I know there was no request history in this. I don't want it silently skipping things simply because I had a bug in the code that sent it a message. So 623.10.29. No request history found in state variables for request ID. You can use %s with console.log. Works with strings and integers and objects. Arbitrate. I'm going to deploy arbitrate and unlock and see what we get. It's important when you're working with Lambda to keep in mind that when you deploy a module like I'm about to now, all the dependent libraries get included with it. So you don't want to have anything in your node modules subdirectory, which is where dependent libraries go. You don't want to have anything in there that you don't actually need. Otherwise, you're uploading unneeded code to Amazon Lambda, and that costs you storage space and cold startup time. I've heard stories, guys that have 256 megabytes of code for a particular function, and it can take them 5 seconds to spin up or to do a cold start on a Lambda instance, or even 10 seconds. So there's a lot of articles on the web about how to make that as efficient as possible, and minifying your code is a good way to reduce the amount of code that's involved with each Lambda function. Okay, and I want to do update log as well. Oh, we're in unlog. That was arbitrate I wanted to do. And unlog. Jeepers. Okay, let's do arbitrate. Unlog. Build arbitrate, and deploy arbitrate. Delete all our logs. Clean out the database tables and do it all again. See what happens this time. Well, I'm going to wrap this up in about 10 minutes, folks. I have a phone call at 11. We're getting close. So, that all worked. What's in our request history table? Still 2 rows. Still that weird lock grant thing. And here, so locked request. No, that's not right. Doesn't have a message ID on it. So let me fix that now before I forget. No, not lock DB, I want lock. Here it is. 68231034. Okay. That will get fixed on the next upload. Don't need to worry about it now. Here's the arbitrate. There's an update lock. Arbitrate. Update lock. User callback. Unlock. Oops, user code. Yes, it does. Okay, unlock. Alright, unlock. Arbitrate. Update lock. Arbitrate. That looks fine. That looks fine. You know what I don't lock hash. That's dumb. Why don't I have the lock hash here? And this thing's still a weird bogey, huh? Well, getting weird artifacts on the screen here. I'm not sure if you can see that on the stream. So, I'm going to run the system test one step at a time and see when that bogey row gets created. Maybe that'll give me a clue as to who's creating it. First, I'll delete the rows off of the request history table. Then, well, that did not seem to do it. Created a row, but a surprising row, actually. Oh, it was just more traffic on the existing lock, of course. Anyway, delete lock is now the last step, which is correct. Let's see what else might have created the bogey row. I'm going to get rid of this row. Okay, so I don't think it'll be that one. Lock client might do it. Oh, couldn't be this, could it? That would be stupid. Yep, there's the bogey row. It's in my freaking test harness, or in my test plan. Well, let's put an end to that ridiculousness. Request history. No, I want test plans. This guy. I've been chasing my tail all this time, and the bug is actually in the test harness, not in the primary code. There it is. Wonder why my search didn't pick that up. What I really want to do is delete the row after I put it in there. Be a polite thing to do. Test harnesses should clean up after themselves. So I think since I'm out of time, I think I'll just leave that as my next to do. exclamation mark. Add a delete function. Add a delete function to request history d.js. Okay. And we'll do a quick git check-in. Just to keep a second copy of my code somewhere. They all look like real files. Still working on request history. DB. Git push. Git push today. There we go. All right. On that note, I better get going. I hope you've enjoyed your time with me listening to the click of the keyboard. And probably be back on later tonight to wrap up this request history debugging. So on that note, thank you, and we'll catch you on the next stream.